Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank my colleagues who are here with me today. And if people haven't noticed, the strike is still going on at prisons across our state. And this has been an ongoing issue for years in the making because of failed policy from the other side of the aisle and failed leadership that we continue to see at the state level. And my colleagues and I are calling on the federal government today to federalize our National Guard troops who are deployed across the state in multiple prisons. The stories that I've heard from family members and constituents across our state of what our National Guardsmen are encountering in the prisons is horrifying. And to think that should they be injured while doing this job, that they would not be eligible for a service-connected disability is unconscionable. Our National Guardsmen have been called upon to serve in emergency situations since their inception. It is their primary focus to serve this state and their nation in times of emergency. We need to be there for them to make sure that they get not only the necessary benefits, but the necessary medical care for them and their families so that they can continue to do their job. What a horrible precedent to be set if they should not receive this. What a horrible message it's sending for those who are considering to serve, watching what's going on in real time right now. We need to do the right thing. We need to act right now, and the federal government needs to approve this federalization. I'm very proud to be joined by many of my colleagues today, one of whom just got back from a deployment overseas. That's Senator Mark Walczak.
Thank you, Senator Ashby. $3.5 million a day. That's how much New York State is spending on this mobilization, this active duty order for the National Guard. You've seen how the corrections officers have been treated in our facilities as employees of the state of New York. The National Guard is in that same dangerous situation right now. You know that if this was a private business, the Attorney General would be standing at a podium, not me, demanding accountability from that private business in the state of New York. This is not how New York State should be treating its National Guard. A little nuanced here, but I appreciate the fourth branch of government being here and covering this. State active duty orders differ from Title 32 or Title 10 federal orders. So there's some things that are not available for our National Guardsmen while they're on state active duty. Some of those things include, right now, they don't have access to a housing allowance. They don't have access to VA benefits, so if they're injured on the job, and obviously they're doing a job where there's a lot of injuries. You all have heard the corrections officers' stories and the reality in our correctional facilities today. There's no retirement points. This is a little nuanced, but your National Guardsmen who are in the facilities right now don't get any federal retirement points or any credit towards their eventual pension for the time that they're doing for New York State right now. We've also heard, and I know my colleagues have heard a lot of these stories about facilities that they're in where they're eating prison food or they're feeding off of community donations because the state failed to properly plan. They don't have they don't have access to showers or to laundry in many cases, and we're told by the National Guard that they're working on some of those things. National Guardsmen have been locked into many of these facilities 24/7. Also, there's no exemption provided for full-time students in the state of New York. So when there's a blizzard or a natural disaster, what generally happens when there's a state active order or a call up during that natural disaster is the state, the TAG, doesn't generally call up National Guardsmen that are about to hit midterms in their semester, for example. Students have traditionally been exempt. That hasn't been the case here. So you could have a 19-year-old college student pulled out of school, missing their midterms, in order to do this dangerous job that the state requires someone to be 21 years old to do. We know that the governor hasn't hit her 7,000 original call-up for National Guards members. She's fallen short of that. And there's no requirement for any military occupation as well. So corrections officers obviously have to go to an academy. Our National Guardsmen could be a dental hygienist trained, or they could be trained to fix generators for the United States Army and in the National Guard. And in this case, they're doing the job of prison work. They're also still required to do their 2 weeks of federal time in order to meet their obligation of national. So that's your 2 weeks in the summer. We say 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year is what your general obligation is. They're still owed those 2 weeks. And here's why I want to point that out. Our National Guardsmen signed up to serve their community, to serve our state, and to serve their country. They do jobs like the rest of us in New York State. They have families. They have homes, they have occupations that they expect to go back to. And when you yank them from their school or from their home or from their job for a long period of time, in those 2 weeks, they're still going to have to go back. What this does in the short term is obviously very disruptive to their life. But in the long term, and I think the governor needs to hear this, is very, very damaging for recruitment and retention of the best New Yorkers to serve in the National Guard. You want employers to know that they have someone stable that they can count on, or they're going to be a little bit hesitant to hire National Guardsmen in the future. You want employers to have that stability, and you want the employees, those National Guardsmen that are doing that work, to know that they can get back to their family. We know that the solutions here are pretty simple. The governor saying that she doesn't know what the corrections officers want and that they should just go back and do their job certainly doesn't help. The continued threats and the threat to health insurance for families is awful for our corrections officers. We know the issues. Get the drugs out of the facilities. Give them the opportunity to use some of those punitive measures to repeal HALT and to do so by an executive order. With that, I'll be followed by Senator George Borrello. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud to stand up here with my colleagues who also happen to be combat veterans and who served this nation. And these folks right now, these National Guardsmen, their job is to respond to natural disasters and emergencies, not to respond to Kathy Hochul's self-created political disasters. But that's what our National Guard in New York State has been relegated to, going into the subways and into prisons to cover for her lack of leadership, her inability to stand up to the radicals in her own party, and now the National Guard has to clean up those messes. It's disgusting, and that's why the National Guard should be federalized and get them out of these places. Let the governor figure this out. She has the path. We've shown her, we've told her, but she refuses to do it. Instead, she's subjecting these young men and women to horrific conditions. I have a constituent who sent me an email. His daughter is in a prison with 50 others in one room with one bathroom and no regular food, sometimes 48 hours without eating. That's how they started off this deployment, and it hasn't gotten much better. One of my staff members has a son who is deployed in one of the prisons right now. He's under a gag order, but all he will say is, it's not good. That is what our governor has chosen to do with the National Guard. It is a travesty, and it needs to end. Governor Hochul, you need to stand up and do the right thing and not put these people in as your human shield to protect your political ass, which is exactly what's going on right now, and this needs to change. Thank you. I want to thank both of my colleagues for stepping up. I know that they've done extensive work in their districts. They both have multiple prisons throughout their district, and they're no stranger to this issue. And right now, I'd like to call up our Republican leader, Rob Orr.
Well, I'm sorry I'm a little late, but I'm sure I missed some of the fireworks, the verbal fireworks from Senator Borrello and others who spoke, but I know Senator Ashby, I want to thank him. He raised this in our conference last week as a veteran of the U.S. military. I know Senator Walczyk as a veteran. We have Senator Steck, myself, veteran of the New York Army National Guard, myself. The men and women who are serving in these jails right now just consider the fact that, as sort of a small point, corrections officers, my understanding is you have to be 21 years old or older to serve in a corrections officer capacity. There are many members of the New York Army National Guard currently in these prisons that are 19, that are 20 years old. We are asking these teenage children, I guess by some definition, certainly young people, to do a job that otherwise they would be precluded from doing. We are asking them to do a very dangerous position without the benefits that they should be able to know they would get. This is a dangerous job. You've seen the numbers, the attacks on corrections officers, and many of our National Guard members have been told they're going to be in these positions indefinitely. Even with the corrections officers coming back, there's no way the governor, and I've been told this by the governor's team, the National Guard will have to remain so as not to continue to work our corrections officers on doubles and triples. And so there's going to be a transition there when I think our Guard members will continue to be in these jails. And that's why we're calling for this effort from the federal government to ensure that these soldiers get the benefits that they should get if something were to happen. It would also save the state of New York about $106 million a month, which is what we're spending right now as part of this fiasco. So I want to thank Senator Ashby, not only for his effort on this, but he works tirelessly when it comes to all of any veteran-related, military-related issue with our Guard here in New York. He is paramount and front and center. So I want to thank him for stepping up and coming up with this initiative and getting our conference on board. And certainly you can see the support that he has and that we have with our members who are here today. So